The River Gods Collection, Forced Redemption Arc. Kiran sat on the cracked steps of his family's house, staring at his phone screen. The light from the device made his thin face glow in the darkness. On the screen, young people danced, laughed, and showed off expensive clothes. They had millions of followers. Kiran had 17. His fingers trembled as he scrolled through videos of celebrities his age buying cars, traveling to foreign countries, living lives that seemed impossible. Behind him, through the open door, he could hear his father coughing, the same sick, wet cough that had lasted 3 years. The medical bills sat in a pile on the kitchen table, each one stamped in red, overdue. Kiran's mother worked 2 jobs, but the debt only grew. His grandfather's debt. His father's debt. Now, soon, it would become Kiran's debt. He looked down at his cheap wooden flute, the only thing of value he owned. The river town where he lived had no future for musicians. Only endless, crushing poverty. The phone buzzed. A message from someone called the Curator appeared. I can make you famous. I can make you rich. Are you ready to become someone new? Kiran's heart pounded. He typed back, yes. The next morning, Kiran's mother found him packing his flute into a bag. Her face, lined with exhaustion and worry, went pale. Kiran, she said softly, gripping his wrist. You're planning something dangerous. I can see it in your eyes. He tried to pull away, but her grip tightened. Do you remember, she continued, her voice shaking, when you were 7 years old? You fell into the river during the storm. Kiran went still. He did remember, barely. The cold water. The darkness. The feeling of something ancient wrapping around his chest. You swallowed something that day, his mother whispered. A black pebble from the river bottom. The doctors couldn't explain how you survived. She released his wrist and pulled out a faded cloth from her apron pocket. On it was. Name, your village, your poverty. We will create a new story for you. A story people want to believe. Kiran felt a strange excitement mixed with shame. And you'll help me become famous? I will make you a star, the Curator promised. But you must follow every instruction exactly. No questions. No hesitation. Your old life, your old music, your old identity, they all disappear. Rivulet is born. Kiran thought of his father's medical bills. His mother's tired hands. The endless, suffocating debt. What's the cost? He asked. The Curator laughed softly. Only your past. Nothing you'll miss. Kiran didn't notice the tightness in his throat growing stronger. He clicked agree on the contract that appeared on screen. The transformation happened quickly. The Curator sent Kiran new clothes, tight black shirts, sunglasses, expensive headphones. Delete all your old social media, the Curator instructed. Delete photos of your family, your village, your childhood. Rivulet has no history. Kiran hesitated over the delete button, looking at pictures of his mother smiling, his father healthy and strong years ago, himself as a child playing flute by the river. His finger hovered. Do it now, the Curator's voice commanded through the phone. Or the deal is off. Kiran closed his eyes and pressed delete. The photos vanished. Hundreds of memories erased in seconds. Good, the Curator said. Now, record your first song. But not that folk music you love. I'm sending you a track. Electronic, modern, empty of emotion but full of rhythm. Sing the words I wrote. Make your voice sound hungry, desperate, cool. The lyrics made no sense to Kiran. They were about clubs, money, girls, things he'd never experienced. But he sang them anyway, his voice sounding strange and hollow in the recording. When he finished, the Curator sent a laughing emoji. Perfect. You sound exactly like everyone else. That's what they want. Kiran looked at his wooden flute sitting in the corner. It suddenly seemed small and worthless. 3 weeks later, Rivulet had 50,000 followers. The curator's strategy worked, the mysterious persona, the manufactured coolness, the perfectly timed posts. Kiran watched the numbers climb with addictive obsession. Then the curator called with a new instruction. There's a local musician, Devon. He's gaining followers in your region. He plays authentic folk music, like you used to. The curator paused. He's a threat to your brand. We need to eliminate him. Kiran's stomach turned. What do you mean, eliminate? Not physically, the curator laughed. Digitally. I have some information about Devon. Old photos from a party, taken out of context. We'll edit them, create a scandal, leak it anonymously. His reputation will be destroyed. His followers will come to you. Kiran felt sick. That's lying. That's ruining someone's life. That's survival, the curator snapped. Fame is war, Kiran. You're either predator or prey. Choose now. Kiran thought of his father's cough. The medical bills. The debt collectors who called every week. His hands shaking, he whispered, "Send me the photos." That night, Kiran anonymously posted the fabricated scandal. Within hours, Devon's name was trending for the wrong reasons. Kiran gained 15,000 new followers. He vomited twice. Rivulet was recording his third song in a small rented studio when it happened. Midway through the chorus, his voice simply stopped. Not from forgetting words. It physically vanished, replaced by a strange, rattling silence. The sound engineer frowned, stopping the track. That's weird. Do that part again. Kiran tried. His mouth moved, but no sound emerged for 3 full seconds. Then his voice returned, shaky and weak. You all right, man? The engineer asked. Kiran nodded, throat burning. They finished the recording, but when the engineer played it back, something was wrong. Beneath Kiran's voice, there was another sound, a rhythmic, watery distortion. Like something breathing underneath the music. What is that? Kiran asked, leaning closer to the speakers. The engineer adjusted the levels, isolating the sound. It grew louder, a pulse, steady and ancient, like a heartbeat underwater. I've never heard interference like this, the engineer muttered. It's coming from inside your voice, not the equipment. Kiran's hand went to his throat. For a moment, he swore he felt something shift beneath his skin. Something small, hard, and smooth. The engineer laughed nervously. Must be a weird technical glitch. I'll filter it out. But Kiran couldn't stop touching his throat, feeling for the pebble his mother said he'd swallowed 13 years ago. A package arrived at Kiran's small rented apartment. No return address. Inside was a folded tapestry, old and hand-woven, showing the same symbol his mother had shown him, a hand holding a stone beneath dark water. Tucked inside was a note in his mother's handwriting. The river god is waking. Come home before it's too late. You're not Rivulet. You're my son. Remember who you are. Kiran stared at the tapestry, feeling a war inside his chest. Rivulet now had 200,000 followers. Brand deals were coming in. Escape from poverty was so close. But his throat hurt constantly now, and he'd started coughing up traces of dark silt in the mornings. The curator called. I saw you hesitating during yesterday's stream. You looked distracted. Weak. That's not the Rivulet brand. I just need a break, Kiran said quietly. No breaks, the curator snapped. You're on the edge of going fully viral. This is when we push harder, not rest. Forget your past. Forget your family. They're anchors dragging you down. Something inside Kiran snapped. He looked at the tapestry, then at his phone showing Rivulet's glittering, false world. He grabbed the phone and smashed it against the wall. Glass shattered. The screen went black. "I'm all in," Kiran whispered to the broken device. He threw his mother's tapestry into the trash. 6 months passed. Rivulet exploded. 1 million followers. 2 million. Brand partnerships with clothing companies, headphone manufacturers, energy drinks. Kiran, now Rivulet, moved into a luxury apartment in the city. The walls were white and empty. He owned expensive things but felt hollow. Every morning, he woke up with crushing anxiety, immediately checking his follower count, his engagement rates, his ranking on trending charts. If the numbers dropped even slightly, panic consumed him. The curator's demands intensified. Post 6 times a day. Interact with fans constantly. Attend every event. Sleep less. Work more. You're a product now, not a person. Kiran tried to remember the last time he'd played his wooden flute. He couldn't. It was packed away somewhere, forgotten. His throat pain had become constant, a deep, aching pressure, as if something inside was slowly expanding. At night, he'd wake up gasping, feeling like he was drowning in air. The cough that once belonged to his father now belonged to him. Dark silt appeared on his pillow every morning. He'd stopped calling his mother. Seeing her name on his phone filled him with shame so deep he wanted to disappear. But the debt, the debt to the curator was enormous now. Every video, every post, every appearance came with fees, percentages, hidden costs. Kiran was famous and more trapped than ever. The curator's next instruction arrived via encrypted message: "We're launching an investment opportunity for your fans. It's called Rivulet Rise, a guaranteed return platform. Tell them it's exclusive, safe, revolutionary. Get at least 100,000 people to invest." Kiran stared at the message, something twisting in his gut. What kind of investment? The response came quickly: "Don't ask questions. Just sell it. Use your influence." Kiran did minimal research and felt his blood go cold. The investment scheme was borderline illegal, a pyramid structure designed to profit early investors while leaving later participants with losses. Most of his followers were young people, students, kids using their parents' money. "I can't promote this," Kiran typed back. "It'll hurt people." The curator's response was ice: "You owe me 700,000 for production, marketing, and advancement costs. The contract you signed gives me ownership of the Rivulet brand. If you refuse, I'll release statements showing you're a fraud. A poor village boy playing pretend. You'll be destroyed." Kiran's hands shook. He thought of his followers, kids who trusted Rivulet, who saw him as inspiration. Then he thought of his debt, his trapped life, his impossible situation. He recorded the promotional video. "Rivulet Rise is the future," he said, his smile bright and empty. "Invest now. Trust me." 50,000 people invested in the first week. Late one night, unable to sleep, Kiran pulled his old wooden flute from storage. Dust covered it. He wiped it clean, brought it to his lips, and played, tentatively at first, then with growing emotion. The folk melody from his childhood poured out, simple and honest and heartbreaking. For the first time in months, he felt like himself. He recorded it on his phone, just for himself. Then, impulsively, he created a secret account under a different name and uploaded the recording with no explanation. The next morning, the curator called, voice sharp with rage. "What did you do? What are you talking about?" Kiran asked, genuinely confused. "You posted music under a different account. Real music. Your village music. I have tracking software on everything you do, you fool." Kiran went cold. "That was private. Nothing is private." The curator screamed. You are Rivulet. You are my creation. If you try to reclaim your old identity, if you try to go back to that authentic garbage, I will expose every lie, every scheme, every desperate thing you've done. I will send proof to the police. About Rivulet Rise. You'll go to prison. Kiran deleted the secret account immediately. But something had broken inside him. He realized he wasn't famous. He was owned. The pain in Kiran's throat became unbearable. He visited 3 doctors. They found nothing, no infection, no damage, no medical explanation. But Kiran knew. Late at night, he'd feel something shifting inside his neck, something solid pressing against his windpipe. He'd wake up choking, clawing at his throat, certain he was swallowing stones. The silt on his pillow was no longer just traces, it was thick, wet, black, and smelled of deep river water. One morning, he looked in the mirror and saw something that made him scream. Beneath the skin of his throat, a dark shape was visible, moving slowly downward, like a pebble sinking through flesh. His mother's words echoed, "The river god will come to collect." Kiran tried to dismiss it as stress, exhaustion, hallucination. But the evidence was physical, undeniable. He pressed his fingers against his throat and felt it, a hard, smooth stone lodged inside him, growing larger. During a live stream, his voice cut out mid-sentence. 20,000 viewers watched as Rivulet clutched his throat, gasping silently, face turning red. The comments exploded, "Is he okay? Is this part of the act? This is creepy." His voice returned after 10 seconds, but the damage was done. Clips of the moment went viral, not as entertainment, but as something disturbing, supernatural, wrong. Thousands of miles away, in the river village, Kiran's mother made a decision. She found an old recording, Kiran at age 12, playing his flute by the river, his voice pure and untrained, singing a folk song about water, home, and truth. Her hands shook as she created a simple account on a small music platform. She uploaded the recording with just one sentence, "This is my son's real voice." Before the world tried to change him. She didn't expect anyone. Algorithm, mysterious and unpredictable, carried the song forward. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of people discovered it. The comment section filled with reactions, "This is beautiful. Who is this kid? Why does this make me cry? This sounds so different from modern music, it's real." A popular music blogger compared the recording to Rivulet's manufactured hits. The contrast was stark, one full of genuine emotion, the other hollow and processed. Whoever this child was, the blogger wrote, he had a gift. I wonder what happened to him. The post went viral. People began investigating, searching for the child in the recording. Kiran, trapped in his luxury apartment, had no idea his past was hunting him down. His mother prayed by the river, begging the river god for mercy, offering anything to save her son from the collection. The Skywave Music Festival was the biggest event of the year, broadcast globally, watched by 50 million people. Rivulet was the headlining act, the final performance of the night. Kiran stood backstage, throat aching, hands shaking, dressed in an expensive outfit that felt like a costume. The curator's voice came through his earpiece, "This is it. Your coronation. Perform perfectly, and you'll be untouchable. Don't mess this up." Kiran walked onto the massive stage. The crowd screamed. Lights blinded him. Giant screens showed his face, Rivulet's face, to the world. The music started, the electronic beat pulsing through the stadium. Kiran opened his mouth to sing. But something was terribly wrong. His voice came out distorted, warped, like it was traveling through water. The audience murmured in confusion. Kiran touched his throat, feeling the stone inside shifting, rising, pressing against his vocal cords. He tried again. The lyrics came out garbled, inhuman. The screens magnified every detail of his face, the sweat, the panic, the realization that his body was betraying him in front of the entire world. The music continued. But Rivulet couldn't sing. The crowd's cheers turned to confused silence. And then, the curator made his move. The giant stadium screen suddenly went black. Kiran's music cut off. Then, a new image appeared: documents, messages, contracts. The curator's voice boomed through the speakers, cold and mocking: "Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the real Rivulet." The screen showed everything. Kiran's real name. Photos of his village. His poverty. The deleted pictures of his family. Messages showing how he'd fabricated Devon's scandal. Financial records of the Rivulet Rise scheme. Proof that every element of his persona was manufactured, false, a lie designed to manipulate fans. The crowd gasped. Phones lifted, recording everything. Kiran stood frozen at center stage, exposed under the merciless lights. "This," the curator's voice continued, "is what happens when you try to break our contract. When you try to reclaim something that no longer belongs to you. Rivulet is mine. And now, he's nothing." The screen showed the secret recording Kiran had made, the folk song on his flute. "He tried to go back," the curator said. "But there is no going back. Only forward into ruin." Kiran fell to his knees, the weight of humiliation crushing him. 50 million people watched a young man's entire identity collapse in real time. But the supernatural horror had only just begun. Kiran tried to speak, to defend himself, to say anything. He opened his mouth, and instead of words, a horrible gurgling sound emerged: wet, drowning, ancient. The crowd recoiled. Kiran clutched his throat, eyes wide with terror. Something was moving inside him, rising fast. The cameras zoomed in, broadcasting every detail to the world. Kiran coughed violently, doubling over. His body convulsed. The stadium went silent, 50,000 people watching in horrified fascination. Then, with a sound like water being expelled from a deep well, Kiran's mouth opened wide, and a black pebble, shining and smooth and impossibly dark, was forced out of his throat. It flew from his lips and clattered onto the stage floor, rolling to a stop under the spotlight. The cameras captured everything. The pebble gleamed with an otherworldly light, covered in dark water that evaporated into mist. Kiran collapsed, gasping, hand pressed to his now bleeding throat. The audience screamed. Security rushed forward. But it was too late. The footage was already streaming live to 50 million viewers. Medical explanations didn't matter. Science didn't matter. Everyone who watched knew they'd witnessed something impossible, something ancient and vengeful. The river god had collected its debt publicly, stripping Kiran of his false voice in front of the entire world. Within minutes, the video was everywhere. Rivulet Pebble trended globally. Millions shared the footage: the supernatural expulsion, the black stone, Kiran's bloodied mouth, his collapse. Theories exploded: demon possession, ancient curses, aliens, performance art gone wrong, religious intervention. The investment scheme victims came forward, demanding refunds and justice. The fabricated scandal about Devon was re-examined, and truth emerged. Police issued a warrant for fraud. But the supernatural element overshadowed everything. People didn't just see Rivulet as criminal or fraud, they saw him as cursed, marked, someone touched by forces beyond understanding. The video became the most watched clip in internet history. Memes, parodies, and investigations flooded every platform. Kiran's mother saw it on her television in the village and wept. The curator disappeared, deleting all accounts, vanishing after achieving his final goal: complete destruction through public spectacle. Kiran was arrested at the Stadium Medical Center, still coughing blood and river water, his throat finally free but his life shattered. Rivulet was dead. And Kiran had to face who he'd become. Kiran sat in a holding cell, stripped of expensive clothes, wearing gray prison uniform. The walls were bare. He was no longer Rivulet, that persona had been obliterated before the world. He was just Kiran again, a poor musician from a river village who'd gambled everything on lies and lost. The charges were serious: fraud, conspiracy, financial manipulation. The Rivulet Rise scheme had cost people their savings. Devon's ruined reputation traced back to him. Dozens testified. But what haunted Kiran most wasn't legal consequences, it was the pebble. He'd felt it inside him for months, growing, pressing, suffocating. Now it was gone, expelled as payment for betrayal of self. His mother's warning echoed, "The river god will collect." He'd ignored her. Thrown away the tapestry. Chosen fame over truth. And the river god had taken payment publicly, humiliatingly, ensuring Kiran's false identity could never resurrect. His lawyer visited, explaining plea deals and prison time. Kiran barely listened. He felt hollow, carved out, empty. That night, through the cell window, Kiran heard a sound that made him weep, someone outside playing a wooden flute, simple, honest folk music. The sound he'd abandoned. After 3 months in custody, Kiran was released on bail while awaiting trial. The judge's words were harsh: "You exploited young people's trust. You manufactured false identity to manipulate thousands. You will face consequences." Kiran had nowhere to go. His luxury apartment was seized. Bank accounts frozen. The curator's debts were real, and Kiran owned nothing. There was only one place: home. He took a bus, then a train, then walked the final 5 miles to his river village. He arrived at sunset, carrying nothing but his wooden flute, the one thing authorities hadn't confiscated because it had no value. His mother opened the door and said nothing. She simply pulled him into her arms. Kiran collapsed, sobbing like a child, all false strength finally breaking. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." His mother held him tighter. "The river god has taken what was owed. Now rebuild what was lost, not fame, but character." His father, thinner but alive, sat in the corner. He nodded silently. That night, Kiran slept in his childhood bed. The river outside flowed steady and ancient. For the first time in years, his throat didn't hurt. The stone was gone, but the debt was not forgotten. Kiran's trial resulted in community service. 500 hours teaching music to children, restitution payments to victims, and 3 years probation. No prison time, because he'd cooperated and shown genuine remorse. But the real punishment was subtler: he would never be famous again. His face was known worldwide as cautionary tale, symbol of false ambition and supernatural judgment. He accepted it. Every morning, Kiran walked to the village community center, carrying his flute and simple notebook. Children came. Some curious, some shy, some dragged by parents hoping music might keep kids from Kiran's mistakes. He taught folk songs. The old melodies of the river, music that had nearly died in the rush toward modern sounds. Slowly, painfully, he rebuilt something real. No cameras. No followers. No curator whispering poisonous strategies. Just Kiran, children, and honest music. The kids called him Teacher Kiran, not Rivulet. They didn't care about viral fame, they cared that he showed up, that he was patient, that music made them feel something true. Months passed. Then a year. Kiran's hands, once soft from luxury, became calloused from work. His voice, once processed and auto-tuned, became raw and genuine. He was becoming real again. 2 years after the collapse, Kiran sat by the river, the same river that had nearly drowned him as a child, the river that held the god who'd marked him, the river that now flowed peacefully under evening sun. He brought his flute to his lips and played. The melody was simple, the folk song his mother had sung to him as baby. No microphone. No audience. No recording. Just music. For its own sake. A few village children sat nearby, listening quietly. One of them, a girl named Mira, was learning quickly, her own flute held carefully in small hands. "Teacher Kiran," she asked, "were you really famous once?" Kiran smiled softly. "I was someone pretending to be famous. That's different. Do you miss it?" Kiran looked at the river, remembering the pebble, the curse, the hollow ache of Rivulet's existence. "No," he said honestly. "I miss who I was before I tried to become someone else." The sun set, painting the water gold and red. Kiran's phone, cheap, basic model now, buzzed. Message from his mother, *, dinner is ready. Come home. * home. The word meant something again. Kiran stood, tucked his flute under his arm, and walked back toward warm lights of the village, leaving the river and its ancient god behind, finally free. But freedom came with scars. Some mornings, Kiran woke gasping, dreaming of stage lights and crushing weight of million eyes watching him. Fail. The nightmares never fully stopped. In the village, most treated him with quiet kindness, but whispers followed. "That's the boy who was cursed. The one who coughed up the river stone. He tried to cheat the old gods." Kiran learned to live with it. His music classes grew. Children from neighboring villages started coming, bringing instruments, flutes, drums, simple string things their grandfathers had made. Kiran taught them songs and stories. The meaning behind melodies, history woven into every note. One day, a journalist from the city arrived, camera in hand, asking for interview about life after viral downfall. Kiran refused politely. "I'm not a story anymore," he said. "I'm just a teacher." The journalist persisted. "But people want redemption narratives. They want to know you've changed." Kiran met her eyes steadily. Redemption isn't performance. It's not for an audience. It's quiet work you do when nobody's watching. She left disappointed. That evening, Kiran taught Mira a new song, watching her small fingers find right notes. This, he thought, was enough. This was real. The village harvest festival came, an annual tradition older than anyone could remember. Music filled the square, drums, flutes, voices raised in celebration. Kiran participated quietly, playing background melodies, not seeking attention. But village elder, Alma Lucia, approached him as evening fell. "Kiran," she said, her ancient face kind but firm, "it's time for you to play the redemption song." Kiran's breath caught. The redemption song was sacred, played only by those who'd returned from great error, who'd faced their worst selves and survived. It required the musician to play alone, in center of the village, confessing failures through melody before finding resolution. "I'm not ready," Kiran whispered. Alma Lucia touched his shoulder. "The river god released you. But you haven't released yourself. Play." Kiran walked to center of the square as crowd quieted. Every face watched, his parents, the children he taught, neighbors who'd known him since birth. He lifted his flute, and played. The melody started broken, discordant, full of shame, every lie, every betrayal, every moment he'd chosen false glory. People bowed their heads, recognizing pain. Then, slowly, melody shifted, finding hope, finding simplicity, finding original pure notes that existed before corruption. When he finished, silence held for long moment. Then, softly, the village began singing with him, joining his redemption with their acceptance. Winter came, and with it, unexpected news. Police contacted Kiran, the curator had been found. His real name was Vikram Malhotra, a former marketing executive who'd built an empire exploiting desperate young artists. Dozens had suffered Rivulet's fate, used, drained, discarded. Authorities needed Kiran to testify. "Will you come to the city?" the officer asked. Kiran felt old fear rise. Returning to that world, facing cameras again. Reliving trauma publicly. But he thought of other victims, young people still trapped in the Curator's system. Yes, he said quietly. I'll testify. The trial was brief. Kiran sat in witness stand, no longer Rivulet, just a young man in simple clothes speaking simple truth. He described manipulation, contracts designed to enslave, systematic destruction of authentic identity for profit. Vikram Malhotra sat expressionless, his empire crumbling. The verdict came. 15 years for fraud, exploitation, and racketeering. As Kiran left the courthouse, a young girl approached, one of the Curator's other victims. Thank you, she whispered. You helped us escape. Kiran nodded, throat tight. He took the bus home that night, watching city lights fade into rural darkness, grateful he'd found courage to speak truth one more time, even in the place that destroyed him. 3 years after the festival collapse, Kiran's music school had grown. A registered non-profit, funded by donations and... Man nodded. I have 100,000 followers. Someone's offering to make me famous. They say I just have to change everything about myself. Kiran looked at the river, remembering the price of that bargain. What do you love about music? He asked. The way it makes people feel, the young man answered immediately. Then do that, Kiran said gently. Just that. Nothing more. The young man thanked him and left. Kiran returned to his song, the river flowing